You guys are good? Good. All right. Okay. I think everybody's all right. What was I saying before? Oh fuck. Was I telling that story? All right. Yeah. Fuck it. Okay. So I used to work at this brewery back in the Midwest, and they kind of had a pretty slick barreling program. I guess when I say pretty slick, I mean they were basically one of the two major OGs of putting shit in bourbon barrels and then putting it in a bottle and selling it out. And I'd been there for about, something like 8 years-ish, and I'd been hearing about these tasting shifts the entire time, which were generally like, it was like the head brewer, or the broom master now, I guess, Kosmicki, and the barreling, kind of leader, Jason Haystack. Like, they would show up to the brewery, just 8 fucking sheets to the wind at some point, and be like, oh yeah, we were tasting KVS all day, blah, blah, blah. And it was, super rad that somebody got to do that, but you always kind of wish that it would, you know what I'm saying, that it would be you. And eventually, I sort of worked my way up to where I was one of the guys who they actually trusted my palate enough that I could taste all these barrels. So they had these barrels like underground in these gypsum mines, like 100 feet below the city of Grand Rapids. Pretty rad facility. There's like 18 miles of gypsum mines, and we had the nice little chunk, and there's just hundreds of barrels down there. So they asked me finally, they were like, hey, can you come out and do the barrel taste? And I was like, yeah, no. It's like, oh, I guess so. Yeah, fuck it. And they actually asked me to be the taster, because I had no technical knowledge. I just had a palate that was, somewhat honed for some reason. And, so I showed up to the barreling facility, and, the basic idea is you're tasting all these barrels because they sit underground, and if bacteria gets in there, and you can lose hundreds if not thousands of dollars if something's contaminated, especially because you mix it all together later. No, they're good. What was I saying? Yeah, okay, anyway, so I get into I walk into the barreling facility, and I know I'm going to be the taster, and I've kind of got a basic idea. I know that there's a guy who they pull the barrels out of the mines, these big ass, bourbon barrels full of beer, and one guy sanitizes everything down, and they go to the bung and they bung it, and they pull the bung out. Another guy takes the big turkey baster looking thing and dips out a sample and puts it in a glass, and then the taster tastes the glass, make sure that there's nothing like acetobacter or something like that. It's like a bacteria that eats sugar and turns it into acetic acid, which is essentially the main ingredient in vinegar, right? Just completely fuck up that barrel. So you taste it, see if you see anything like that, and then you set it down, and another guy takes it and he puts it through a machine. It goes to, tells you whether or not the pH is off, etc. At least that's how I thought it was supposed to work. So it's a 4-man team, 1 taster. So I show up, get my scraggly ass mustache and stuff. So I had to wear a hairnet and a mustache net and booties on my feet. And I'm hanging out with the team, and they bring out just about 10 barrels in a row at a time. The guy bungs the barrel, pops it out. Another guy takes the turkey baster, puts it into the cup, and then I taste it. I say everything's okay, or I say this one's a little off. If it's a little off, you set it aside. The guy with the pH thing spends some extra attention on it, etc. But I wipe through this first 10 samples of beer. And as I get through the first row, I realize that we're going through about 250 barrels that day. And what we're doing is this beer called Doom, which is a 12.6% double IPA that's been aged in a bourbon barrel for, I don't know, I think it was something like 8-9 months. and I'm already buzzed after the first 10 sips of beer. But I'm a baller, right? I've been doing this shit for a good long time, so I'm like, no, I'm not gonna be phased. Get through the first row, jump to the second. Bung, turkey baster, sample to me, weird pH machine, move on. Bust through the next 10, the next 10, the next 10. After like 7 or 8 rows, the guys I was working with, like I noticed them actually taking a sample of beer and I started thanking them. I'm like, fucking thank God. Like, I don't think I could actually like get through this next round. I appreciate that. All right, that's like 3 samples I don't have to do. Go through the entire run. Hold on one second. Okay, no, they're making out now. They're all right. So, where was I? Yeah, so after like it was only like 3 hours, went through 250 barrels. I tasted probably 2-3 ounces out of each and every barrel, except for maybe 40. We'll say I drank an ounce out of about 210 barrels. Which, if you think about it and you do the math, it's about 210 ounces of 12.6% bourbon barrel aged double IPA. Excuse me. So it's like railing through what 540s of 12% beer in 3 hours. I was hammered. I just kind of said goodbye to everybody, took my hairnet off, walked out of the place. I was hands down, I've got to be in the Hall of Fame as like the friendliest Uber customer that ever existed. I went home, I took a 5-hour nap, and then I went back to work. And I was talking, because I had like tours and stuff I had to do later that day. And I was talking to a buddy of mine who had seen the guys I was working with. And I didn't realize that generally these guys don't go back to work. They go home right after because they're hammered. Because it turns out the taster isn't there to taste every single barrel. The taster is there to taste maybe 1 out of every 5 or 10 barrels so that the other guys don't have to get super hammered. So I was nice enough to take that burden away from them and just drank all the beer. So they were like, fuck it, and went back to work. And I was screwing with one of them. I saw one of the guys a few days later. I was like, why the hell, seriously, why the fuck would you let me just continue drinking? And they were like, dude, you railed through the first 4 rows, and we just kind of decided to see what happened after that. And we were all pretty surprised when you walked out of there upright and smiling after all that fucking beer. But, yeah, made it home. Everything worked out. Was never asked to do it again for some reason, but I gotta say, it's one of the greatest days of my life. I'd been hearing about those tasting shifts for a lot of years, and to actually get to do one was pretty badass. And to actually do the job of 5 men by myself, fairly characteristic of me. What can I say? You look like you're almost out. You want another beer, brother?